Good morning, everyone. In today's lecture, we are going to see the second phase of the compiler design process, that is syntax analysis. Okay. So the agenda of today's lecture is you will be introduced to syntax analyzers or the process of syntax analysis. Okay. So you will learn what is syntax analysis. Okay. And what is the theory behind syntax analysis, and what are the different types of syntax analyzers we have. Okay, perhaps this is the one area in compiler design that can be done in several ways. Okay, syntax analyzers can be implemented in several ways. They are broadly categorized into two types: top-down syntax analysis and bottom-up syntax analysis. Okay, so in the next two coming units, I mean the unit 2 and unit 3, you will learn the syntax analysis itself. Okay, the whole process, right? So this is my presentation outline. So first we'll see what is the role of the parser in this entire compiler design process. What is the role of the parser? So parser is the name given to the syntax analyzer. Okay, another name, alias name we can say. Okay, we often use these two terms interchangeably throughout the course. Okay, so when I say parser, parser means syntax analyzer, syntax analyzer, right? And then we'll see something called context free grammars. Okay, context free grammars plays a vital role in the syntax analysis process. Okay, we will see what is their significance and why we need to study context free grammars and all. Then we'll go for the top down parsing. In today's class we'll we'll talk up to the top down parsing. Later on in the next coming classes we will see bottom up parsing and some of the parser generators like Yak. Okay, so let's move into the content, right? So as you can see here, the role of a parser in the compiler design process is, as the name implies, uh, it has to parse the stream of tokens generated by the lexical analyzer. Okay, so you can see here the lexical analyzer gives the input to the parser. Okay, parser will take that input and convert that into parse tree, something called parse tree. Okay, so from this diagram you can observe that like parser will take the input from the lexical analyzer and it will produce the output. Okay, that output may be in turn it will be the input for the rest of the front end process. The rest of the front end process is a semantic analyzer. Okay, so parser will sit in between lexical analyzer and the semantic analyzer in our phases of compilation, right? Now when it comes to the role of the parser, okay, the main functionality of the parser is it has to validate the syntax. Okay, so we'll see what is syntax in a short while, right? So let me explain this with a small example. Okay, let us consider this like int followed by say some v followed by say some 15. Okay, followed by some semicolon. Okay, like let us consider this instruction. Okay, uh, perhaps it is a declaration and initialization statement in C. Okay, C or C++ or Java. Okay, int v equals to 15 followed by semicolon, right? So the role of the lexical analyzer is it has to identify these individual terms. Okay, int is one term, v is another term, or I mean equal to is another term, 15 is another term. Okay, semicolon is another term. Okay, so the purpose of the lexical analyzer is to generate these stream of tokens. Okay, it has to generate int v equal to 15 and semicolon. It has to generate these many tokens. Okay, those are in turn they are given as input to the parser, the next phase of the comparison process. Okay, here the parser has to check whether all these statements are arranged properly or not. Okay, all the vocabulary, all the stream of tokens generated from the lexical analyzer are arranged or structured as per the rules of the programming language or not. Okay, say suppose, let us assume, uh, if the lexical analyzer produce stream of tokens like in this format, b15, b followed by space followed by 15. Okay, even though they are lexically correct, int is one keyword, b is a variable or identifier, and 15 is a numeric value. Even though they're lexically correct, lexically they are perfect. Okay, they are lexically all right, but they are syntactically wrong. Why? Because the structure is not correct. Okay, what is structure here? Generally, if you look at the C programming rules, structure rules, generally declarations, I mean variable declaration starts with the data type, okay, followed by variable name or identifier. Okay, data type followed by variable name followed by identifier followed by some equal to sign. Okay, followed by some value, some numeric or some expression. Okay, on the right hand side you can have numeric or expression followed by semicolon. Okay, so this is the correct way, or we can say this is the rule. Okay, that we have been following while declaring our statements, declaring and initializing our variables. Okay, so this is the fundamental rule in C. Okay, so we call this as syntax. Okay, syntax rule. So syntax is nothing but the structure of the program, or a structure of a sentence, or a structure of an instruction. Okay, here this particular syntax rule states that every declaration and declaration and initialization statement must start with a data type followed by some variable name followed by some assignment symbol followed by either a numeric value or it could be an expression on the right hand side followed by semicolon. Okay, it must end with the semicolon. Now if you compare these stream of tokens with this rule, okay, obviously we can say this is not a valid syntax. This is not a valid syntax. Why? Because it doesn't follow this rule. Okay, it is not following this rule. This particular statement is not obeying this rule. Okay, hence we can say this statement or this stream of tokens, it does not forms the structure. Okay, it is ill formed, or we can say it is syntactically wrong. Okay, so that is where the parser comes into picture. Okay, parser will try to get the tokens from the lexical analyzer and it will try to identify the structure of the program. Okay, whenever it will validate the structure, then it will say it is syntactically okay. Then those tokens will be converted into a form called parsetree and they will be given as input to the next phase of the compiler design process, that is semantic analyzer. Okay, if there is something goes wrong, then it will produce syntax errors. Okay, those errors will be ultimately they're handled by the error handler routine. Okay, error handler additional phase of the compiler design process. Okay, I hope you understand this concept. Okay, the main functionality of the parser is to validate the sentences. Okay, validate. Okay, how to validate? We need to validate the structure of the program against its rules. Okay, against its rules. Okay, so let me give you a small example so that it will be more clear to you. So in this entire process of parsing, the other name for syntax analyzer is parsing, don't confuse. Okay, I will use parser instead of syntax analyzer. Okay, the term parser. Okay, perhaps it is simple to I mean utter and all. Now let us consider a small scenario. Okay, let me give you a small English statement like uh, Rama plays with Rama plays with Suresh. Okay. Like if you're asked to validate this statement, what do you say? Is this a correct statement? Rama plays with Suresh. So generally what happens is it is written in some language like English language. Okay. So English language has its own rules, has its own structured rules, right? So those rules are said to be grammar, English grammar. Okay, right, right. So if I want to validate this statement, whether it is correct or not, whether it is written according to the rules of the English language or not, what I have to do? I have to compare this statement. Okay, I have to compare this statement against the rules of the grammar. Okay, if you are able to derive this statement, if you are able to write a statement like this by using those rules, then we can say this is okay, this is written according to the rules of the English grammar, hence we can say it is an English statement. Okay, right. So why I'm saying like that is, say suppose Rama is the subject, followed by verb, followed by some object. Okay, so there is a fundamental principle in English grammar that English statement must contain a subject followed by a verb followed by an object. So Rama plays with is a verb, I mean plays, and this is adjective, like followed by Suresh, that is object. Okay, Rama plays with Suresh. It's a valid statement in English. Why? Because it follows this rule. Okay, this is a fundamental rule in forming the sentences. Like, so let me change the order. With uh, Rama, Suresh plays. Okay, with Rama, Suresh plays. Okay, is it make sense? Is it make sense as per the English grammar? No. Why? Because it is not written according to the rules of the English grammar. Hence, we can say it is not a valid English statement. It is not a valid English statement. Okay. The same is the case with the parser here. Okay. The same analogy works here, right? So our task is we want to validate the structure of the program, structure of the source program. That is the input given to the lexical analyzer. We need to validate whether it is structurally correct or not. Okay. So what do you mean by structure here? The structure is nothing but like if you take the C programming language, the general structure of a simple C program is, first we need to list out all the headers. Okay, we need to include all the headers, then followed by global constants, global constants. Okay, then followed by uh, main function, followed by the body of the program enclosed in curly braces, right? Whenever you write your programs like this, okay, by using this structure, then only they will be considered as a valid C programs, valid C programs. Okay, so this is what we call syntax of the programming language, the structure. Okay, okay, after the header files there should be global constants, okay, if any, that should be followed by the main function. Main function must be, I mean the body of the main function must be enclosed in the curly braces. Curly braces. Okay. So if you forget to write this, include this closing parentheses, then it is going to be a structural error. Okay. Right. So that is what we call syntax error. Syntax error. Right. Now, so this is our task here. Okay, we want to validate whether it is structurally correct, whether the given program, okay, the program, the source program that is given to the compiler is correct or not, syntactically correct or not. Okay, how we can say that? We will compare the structure of the source program against its grammar. Okay, so the important thing here is we are going to consider the grammars. Okay, just like we have English grammar, so we have grammars for programming language as well, for PLs. For all high level languages, high level programming languages, we have grammars. Okay, these grammars will specify the set of rules, syntax rules for the programming languages. Like if you take C, C has its own grammar. Okay, C++, it has its own grammar. Like Java, or you can take any high level programming language, Python, Pascal, COBOL. Okay, they all have their own grammars. Okay, usually these grammars are said to be the grammars corresponding to programming languages are said to be context free grammars. Context free grammars. Okay, right? CFG. Okay, in short, we will call it as CFG. CFG stands for context free grammar. Context free grammars. Context free grammars are nothing but the grammars for the programming languages. Okay, I think you might have studied this in your previous course, FLAT. Okay, there are 4 types of languages: regular languages, context-free languages, context-sensitive languages, recursively enumerable languages. Okay. For regular languages, we have a regular grammar. For context-free languages, we have uh, context-free grammar, and for this context-sensitive language, we have context-sensitive grammar, and for this, I mean recursively enumerable grammars, we have recursively enumerable languages, but we have recursively enumerable grammars. Okay, so what I mean to say here is context-free grammar is nothing but the grammar for the programming languages. Okay, right? So with this briefing, let us move into the details of the grammars. Okay, so okay. Yes. Then, if you recall, the definition of a grammar, formal grammars we are talking about. If you recall the definition of the grammar, it is something like usually it is denoted with. So let me give you. It's a 4 tuple, usually denoted with capital G. Capital G goes to BTPS. B. It's a 4 tuple. There are 4 components which describes the grammar, formal grammars. Okay. G goes to BTPS. Okay. So Vijayawada Thermal Power Station. That is why that is how we can remember it. Okay. Usually grammars denoted with capital G are described with these 4 terms. The 4 tuple BTPS. B is a finite set of, what is B? B is a finite set of finite set of finite set of variables. Finite set of variables, or you can call them as non-terminals, NT. Okay, the terminology that we are going to use in the compiler design is NT. Instead of variables, we use this term non-terminal. Okay, and T stands for, T is a finite set of terminals. Okay, terminals. Okay, so the other name for terminals is tokens. Okay, in compiler design terminology, we use this term instead of terminals. We use this term token. So token means it's a terminal. Okay. set of terminals will be considered as tokens, right? Then P is, it is a vital thing in the grammar definition. P is a finite set of rules, finite set of finite set of rules, set of rules in the form of A derives alpha. A derives alpha. Okay, A derives. This is what we call derivation symbol, or A implies alpha, we can say, right? So on the left hand side, we have a single non-terminal. Okay, A is a single non-terminal on the left hand side, and alpha is a combination of B union T star, B union T star. Okay, that means on the right hand side you can have a combination of both terminals and non-terminals, but on the left hand side you must have a single non-terminal or a single variable. Okay, so that is P. So P is the crucial thing here, set of rules we can say, okay, or grammar rules we can say. Okay, grammar rules must be in the form of A derives alpha. So I'm giving the definition for CFG. Okay, in CFG the grammar rules are like this: A derives alpha, where A is a single non-terminal and alpha is a set of uh, what you call that, it's a combination of terminals and non-terminals. Okay, I will give you a small example so that it will be more clear to you. Then S is a special variable. S belongs to V. S is one of the variable which is designated as start variable or starting non-terminal. Start variable. Start variable or starting symbol of the grammar we can say. Okay. So this is very important. You need to know this definition. Then only you can understand the, I mean, the logic behind the grammars and all. Okay. So if you want to know the process of syntax analysis, you need to know the grammars first. Okay, why? Because grammar is the crucial thing. With the help of grammars only we are able to construct the parsers. Okay, right? So grammar G is VTPS, where V is the finite set of variables and T is a finite set of terminals and P is a set of production rules, finite set of production rules in the form of A derives alpha, where A is a single non-terminal on the left hand side and alpha is a uh, alpha is a combination of terminals and non-terminals, right? So, and S is a special symbol usually designated as the start symbol of the grammar. Here is an example. Now you can see. Okay, this is an example for a context-free grammar. Here you can see we have a set of rules. This is one rule, rule number 1. E derives E plus T is the first rule. E derives T is another rule, second rule. And T derives T star F, third rule. And T derives F, another rule, fourth rule. And F derives grouping of E, fifth rule. And F derives ID, sixth rule. Okay. So there are 6 rules in this particular grammar. Okay. So if you observe here, we'll follow some notational conventions here. All the lowercase terms and all the symbols, all the operators of the special symbols are usually considered as terminals. Okay, all the lowercase letters and all the special symbols, lowercase letters and the special symbols are usually considered as small terminals, okay, or tokens. Okay, so what I mean to say here is this plus is an operator. Similarly asterisk, similarly open parenthesis, closing parenthesis, and ID. Okay, all these are terminals. All the capital letters are treated as non-terminals. Okay, this is just for notational convenience only. We are writing like that. Okay, to distinguish between terminals and non-terminals. Okay, so if you look at this grammar contains say uh, three non-terminals E, T, and F. Okay, and it contains one, two, three, four, five terminals. Okay, plus asterisk, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and ID. So there are five terminals in the grammar, and one of the non-terminal, that is E, is designated as the start symbol of the grammar. Start symbol of the grammar, and we have six production rules. E derives E plus T is one production rule. E derives T is another production rule. T derives T star F, and T derives F. F derives E, and F derives ID is another production rule. Okay. Now, what is the significance of this? Okay, why we need to have this kind of production rules? Okay, so that we'll see, right? Now, if you compare this one with the earlier said, I mean English statement like English grammar rules. So I can do something. The subject derives, sorry, sentence. So let me erase one. Okay. So let me write the grammar for the English statement. Say statement STMT derives. Statement implies subject followed by verb followed by object. Okay, so this is my rule. This is my first rule, or the first production rule in my grammar. Okay, then subject could be, it could be uh, Rama. Here Rama is a token. Okay, small